Long time ago, there was a young maiden in South India, southernmost tip of India. She aspired to hold Shiva's hand, not his feet. She's a proud woman. She wanted to hold his hand as a wife. She said, if at all, if I marry, it's only him. If you have big desires, you also have to make yourself capable. Otherwise, desires can be very frustrating. So she started working towards making herself capable to be suitable to draw that man. Her austerities crossed all levels of sanity, and she remained absolutely focused upon him. Every moment, just on it. So it stirred up Shiva's compassion and love. So he started making his journey to South India. But all the other gods conspired. They did not want him to have a South Indian wife. They played many tricks to stop him. She set up this deadline. If I'm not married to him by sunrise on this day, I'm going to leave my body. And Shiva came to know of this and was hurrying down. Then the other gods thought, if he gets married here, he may not go back up there. He may start living in South India. So they conspired to create a false sense of sunlight. When light came up, Shiva thought, oh, sun came up and I could not meet the deadline. He was close. And he thought, it's over, and he turned back. So she left her body standing. Even today she stands there as Kanyakumari. There is a shrine at the very tip of this country. So he turned back and he felt very disappointed with himself that he could not meet up to her devotion. So little despondent, frustrated with himself that he didn't make it in time. He started walking back and he needed a place to sit and work out his despondency. So he climbed up this mountain, and at the peak of this mountain he sat. We don't know how long, but because wherever Shiva stepped and spent a little bit of time, people called that place as Kailash. So they called this the Kailash of the South. In its height, in its color, probably in its magnitude, it may not be comparable to the Kailash in the Himalayas, but in its potency and in its beauty and in its sacredness, it is not any less. And the marriage was fixed. She is a princess. A huge wedding was set up. Everybody in that region, whoever is who and who is who of the region, everybody assembled. In India, this is a tradition, the bridegroom will come with his party. Usually you will see today, he will come riding a horse and big… they will show off their wealth and their… The bridegroom's people will come in full attire, showing off how they're better than the bride's people. But here, Shiva came, dreadlocked, matted hair, smeared from head to toe in ash, wearing the skin of an elephant which has just been slain, fresh skin, bleeding, dripping blood. And he came fully inebriated, completely stoned out, like that. And all his people, they're all demented and distorted beings. They're not in human form, and they're making some nobody can understand kind of noises among themselves, a language that nobody can understand. And Meera, Parvati's mother, looked at this groom and she again omaed. Oh no! And she fainted. Then Parvati went and begged Shiva, for my mother's sake, put on a little better, I don't mind the way you are. I just don't mind how you are. All I want is you, the way you are. But for my mother's sake, just show a little more pleasant self. He said, okay. And he put on a very beautiful form, attired himself well, and then he came. And then the people said he's a Sundar Murti, that means he's the most beautiful human being they'd ever seen. He was 9 feet tall. They say when he stood, he was level with the horse's head. This description is there in many scriptures. When he came down south, they said he was twice the height of an average woman. Generally in South India, now it's all mixed up, otherwise, southern Indian people, women were generally 4.5 to 5 feet, less than 5 feet. So they said he's twice that of an average woman, that's how they described here. There they said he was level with a horse's head. So approximately 9 feet tall man, the most beautiful man, and everybody was awestruck by his presence. Then he came and sat down. Marriage is to happen. When marriage is to happen in India, especially in this kind of weddings, the antecedents of the bride and the groom are spoken with great pride. The ancestry, where they come from, how pure their blood is and all that stuff. So for the bride, glorious things were said. Her father is the mountain king and many things were said about her. Now they asked, what about the groom? He simply sat quietly. He said nothing. And there were none of his relatives who could speak any language. All these other creatures who were with him, they made cacophonic noises. Then the groom, the bride's father, was disgraced by this, a man without antecedents. How will he marry my daughter? Nobody knows where he comes from, who his parents are, what is his lineage. How can I give my daughter to this man? He rose up in anger. Then there was a sage, Narada, who had a single-stringed instrument called ektara. He just did tang, tang, tang. The king got even more angry. What are you doing ektara for? Narada said, this is his antecedents. He has no father, he has no mother. Then what's his basis? Tang. His basis is sound, reverberation. He's just born out of a reverberation. He has no parentage, no antecedents, no lineage. Then the king was freaking, but the wedding happened. Parvati desperately wanted to marry Shiva. So she hired help, the god of Kama, Kamadeva. He's the original Cupid. Usually Cupid renders you quite stupid. So he hid behind a tree and shot a flower arrow at Shiva. The flower arrow hit him and he opened his eyes from his meditative state, and this beautiful Parvati was sitting there. And suddenly something stirred up within him,
and he felt desire for her. Then he got angry, who did this to me? And he looked, Kama was looking from behind the tree at his success. Then he said, you idiot, you disturbed my sadhana and put this desire in me. And he opened his third eye and he burnt him into ashes. You need to understand, any kind of desire, lustfulness, arises not from outside but from inside. So Shiva burnt Kama into ashes. Means, not that he looked at somebody who was behind a tree and burnt him. When he saw desire rising within him, he opened his third eye. Third eye is an inward eye, not an outward eye. These two eyes are enough to see the world. These two eyes can grasp everything that is physical. Now you want to see something which is not physical in nature, the only way to look is inward. So if you have an eye which can look inward, that is the third eye, not an extra appendage or an opening in your forehead. Third eye is referring to an inner dimension. Two eyes to see the physical. To see the non-physical, there's another eye, which is an inward eye. Why are they talking about the forehead? Because that is where it is located. Agna chakra. This is the chakra between the eyebrows, which is an inward vision, because it's all about turning inward.
Shiva's love for Sati was like I was just now telling, when we were in the Kailash trip, people became weepy about what they missed. They didn't miss anything, but they felt they missed. So, it's one of those moments when you yield. So Shiva's love for Sati is just like that. It's one of those moments where he gave in to the ways of emotion and to the ways of life. That was not an eventual happening in his life, that was just a small happening in his life. It is his silence which is of utmost significance to us. It is his silence which is of greatest value to us, not his romance, not his marriage, not his wife's death, not these things. But how to talk about his silence? There is no way to talk about his silence. Now that you've brought up the question yes, he went through all the throes of romance and the death and the grief and the works. But the moment he set it down, he simply sat there still unmoved, as if nothing had ever happened to him. Nothing had happened to him at all, and in fact nothing had happened to him, and nothing happens to anybody for that matter. It is just that because our psychological and emotional structures are such that it is designed for us to enjoy the juice of life. But unfortunately, most people don't drink the juice of life, they drown in the juice of life. So Shiva also allowed himself that luxury for some moment. When he thought it's enough, he came out of it and sat there completely conscious and in a different state. So don't ever think that was the eventual happening, that was just a small happening in his life, and that was fine. That made him kind of more human-friendly because people could relate to him because he also grieved. That gives some joy to all the people who are in different levels of misery, that Shiva also suffered for a certain period of time. But you need to understand, it's just one of those moments when he is given into the process of life. But the moment he wants to stop it, he stops it immediately and sits there untouched by any of these things.
You need to understand, Shiva jumped from gross to subtle
just like that. The subtlest aspects of yoga and the crudest aspects of yoga, everything was handled at once because he makes no distinction between this and that. The word Shiva means just that he made no distinction between good and bad. Anything that's rejected anywhere in the world is his. All those beings, all those qualities, all those substances which have been rejected by all the people in the world, all the gods, he took it upon himself. So, what Shiva means is absolute acceptance, not an iota of resistance. Everything is his. It is in this state the yoga was propounded. It is in this understanding the yoga was propounded. The word yoga means just the same. The word yoga means everything has become one. Yoga means all-inclusiveness. With a sense of exclusiveness in you, you attempt yoga, you will get into just entertainment.
There is something called as mysticism, not because there is such a thing. Because human beings are determined to live in ignorance, there is mysticism. All that they're ignorant of, they will label it as mystery, isn't it? There's nothing mysterious about it, it's simply there. It is your limitations which make something mysterious, isn't it so? It's your inability to grasp which makes something mysterious, not the nature of what it is. So, beyond darkness, what is? All that you cannot grasp is darkness for you. And that's the whole thing. What you can grasp is so small. If you know 1,000 galaxies, still it is too small in the cosmic scape of existence. And all that you do not know invariably is darkness to you. So, this vast space of darkness, darkness is not a substance. Darkness is not a thing. Absence of light is darkness. Absence of perception is darkness. Absence of knowing is darkness. So that is the ultimate thing, because there is too much that is not known to you, so it's dark. So darkness does not mean a thing. It is not a thing. It is something that's beyond your perception, so it's dark. So, all that is dark and beyond your perception, we say this is Shiva, because it's a limitless expanse. A limitless expanse of ignorance, but there is no limitless expanse of knowledge. Knowledge is always limited. It can be large, but still very limited. Only ignorance can be limitless. So Shiva is also referred to as Bholenath, the ignorant one. Because he's the Lord of ignorance. How's that? You don't like it? You don't like it, isn't it? He should be the Lord of knowing. No, he's also that. He's Gnaneshwar. But that's a small aspect of him. But in real sense, he is the Lord of ignorance, because that is the largest scape in the existence is ignorance, and that's darkness. Oh, who would want to seek it? If you only explore your ignorance, knowledge will be born, isn't it? If you explore knowledge, nothing new will be born. Just recycling of rubbish will happen. Only if you explore ignorance, knowing can be born.
Shiva is not a philosopher, he's a yogi. When I say He is not a philosopher. See, it's very easy to be philosophical. In fact, the less you know, the more the chances that you will become philosophical. It's very easy to become a philosopher. You just have to read a couple of books and misunderstand them. You can become a philosopher. The reason why you're talking about something that is written in a book is because you have not perceived, grasped life in any depth. If you had even read a single page of this vast existence, all your life you would be talking only that. There wouldn't be time to talk about anything else. So Shiva is a yogi, purely existential, not philosophical, not intellectual. This is not something that you can understand. This is not something that you have to be convinced about. This is not something that you have to agree with. This is something that you learn to relate with. If you can relate to it and experiment with it, it will do miraculous things for you.
What is the difference between Shiva and Buddha is not an appropriate question. Which aspect of Shiva did Buddha explore? He explored the path of awareness, which is one aspect. It's very unidimensional, but the significance of Gautam Buddha is, he's very scientific, clinical. He appeals to the logical mind. But he's like… He also said like this. Many times he was an ascetic, he just sat, unmoving. But many times he was mad, dancing, drunk. He was in all kinds of states, because he didn't limit himself to any particular dimension. He just explored every aspect of life. But unfortunately, I am always strongly feeling about this. This is one being who has not been sufficiently acknowledged for the work that he has done, not as a god, for the work that he has done, for the knowledge that he spread, for the capability and empowerment that he did to humanity, the work that he did on human consciousness, for that he's not been sufficiently acknowledged. That's one of my wishes, that in the next 100 years, this one being must find more acknowledgement, because what he has done, no other being has done on this planet, no other. I have enjoyed being his partner, and I know the depth and the dimension of his work, and he has not found even a fragment of acknowledgement that he deserves. Just saying somebody is a god is not good. As a being, what work he has done, he needs to be acknowledged for that. Generally it's believed this is somewhere 40 to 60,000 years ago that he started his work. But after 60,000 years or 40,000 years, it is still alive, you can't kill it. You still can't kill it, isn't it? By the time I am done with my life, I'm sure I will leave him little more popular than the way he is today.
For more videos, please subscribe. Press bell icon and never miss an update.